Alright, and we're live! Hey everyone, I'm Sebastian from Reviews. It's been a while since my last stream, and frankly, I kind of feel like I wanted to give a little bit more production value to the streams that we do here on the channel, which is why you're seeing a whole new, different setup here. We're actually using chroma key for the first time here in one of these. Things are looking a little bit spiffier than normal. So, why am I doing this? Actually, hold on. Let me move myself a little bit over here. Let's move that over. There we go. Alright, perfect. There we go. Now it looks a little bit better. Alright, so, the Oscars were at least 2 weeks ago by this point. Everybody has already had their own opinions about the ordeal. Everybody had their own things they had to say. I was adamantly silent by comparison. I didn't really say a whole lot about the whole thing, despite me hyping it up, despite me making a big deal about the whole thing. I didn't really feel like talking about it because, in case you didn't know, we had a bit of a couple of incidents occurring while we were trying to get the stream across, and unfortunately for me, I ended up with a copyright warning, not a strike, a warning, telling me that you need to either appeal this, or if you do anything like this again, it's a strike and you'll be screwed. I would have appealed the damn thing on the basis that they're flagging this as a scam or some other nonsense like that. I don't really even remember what it was that they were accusing me of, but by that point I've already deleted it, and honestly, it just felt like way too much trouble for absolutely nothing. Like, the stream was a complete and utter failure. I couldn't stream it on YouTube, and when I tried to stream it on Twitch, which was relatively fine, I ended up going for like about 60 minutes, I want to say, before I was notified that my Twitch channel was completely 100% suspended. So, that really sucked. And honestly, it really is it's just a big downer for me, because I really wanted to give a little bit more. I wanted to show my enjoyment of the Oscars, and I wanted to enjoy that with all of you watching at home, especially since a lot of you at home are not able to watch it because you live outside of the United States. So that really, it disappointed me a lot. I got a couple of new followers out of it, but to be honest, it wasn't the outcome I was looking for, and it left me very disappointed and very upset and sad about the whole thing. So there's that. I felt very sad about the whole thing, so I decided to just stop talking about it, because I genuinely couldn't bear. It was too much for me to talk about, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. But a couple of weeks have passed by. The dust has already settled. I since rewatched the show on Hulu, because a reminder that this shit was happening because a little company called ABC, who also are under Disney, decided neither me nor Double Toasted, for that matter, were allowed to stream it, despite so many other people being able to do so without any problem. So that to me felt very suspicious and anger-inducing, and it really kind of tainted my whole perspective on them as a company, and I'm not sure if I'm ever going to forgive them for almost completely tanking my channel, but that's neither here nor there. That's not the point of the stream. I'm here to talk about the Oscars and what my overall thoughts were on the whole show. And to be honest, I think this show was, at least compared to the ones that we had previously, was arguably the best one that we've had in a long time. Like, no joke, no exaggeration, this was, without a doubt, the single best Oscars that we have ever had. Like, I don't think there's ever been a particular Oscars where this kind of yes was ever achieved. Like, all of the nominees, all of the wins, with a couple of exceptions here and there I'm going to talk about. Like, the show as a whole, with the exception of Jimmy Kimmel, who's still doing his Jimmy Kimmel shtick of not knowing when to shut up or when to stop sticking to the same joke that we've all... I'm trying to kind of put the excitement here, because I'm doing this by myself, and frankly, I'm also kind of doing this to test out the waters because we're going to be streaming again tomorrow when we're doing our newest episode of our News from the Wasteland podcast that we put on hiatus for a couple months ago. So bear with me here. This is going to be a little rough. It's been a while since I've done this, and I'm just going to go through the motions to talk to you all about what my views are on this year's Oscars as a whole. And I'm very excited because this year the Oscars were actually really fucking good. So let's not dilly-dally, let's talk about it. And I'm going to let's first talk about the show itself as a whole. How did the show present itself? Well, it, for surprising reasons, didn't really feel the need to waste anybody's time. It didn't waste the time of the audience or the people watching from home. It stuck right there to what it wanted to do, to what it needed to do. It didn't waste time with any ridiculous jokes or any ridiculous skits. I'm still cringing over the stupid, this annoying. How do I say it? I can't even get too mad about it because I'm so burnt out from even raging about it. Just when Amy Schumer was dangling around as Spider-Man for a movie that wasn't even nominated that year for anything other than for visual effects, I was completely surprised that they decided to avoid doing any of this, mostly because they realized that everyone talking about the Oscars that year were mocking it through hell and back for obvious reasons. There was a surprisingly lacking amount of shit-talking when it comes to animation, and I will talk about animation very soon here, I promise, because there's one particular bit of animation that I'm going to be talking that I know a lot of you want me to talk about, and I was also very surprised that, for the most part, they handled the presentation a lot better than most other shows. I like that they did this thing where, depending on the category, they had this thing happening in the background. Well, you can't see the background because I'm chroma keying here, where they had this cool little thing that they showed all the different ways that this type of thing was done when it comes to cinema, whether it's editing, whether it's directing, whether it's costume design. They had a whole bunch of different costumes and a whole bunch of different other knickknacks there for everyone to see to illustrate what the particular category was about. And I don't think they've ever done anything like this before. It was mostly just a bunch of people talking about what these particular categories are or what they're about. And I think this really felt like a celebration of cinema instead of just, here's the nominee, here's a joke about how my kids watch animated movies and how it's only there to shut them up. Like, it actually felt like these people gave a crap about movies, which you wouldn't think considering the Oscars was something that has not been done in a long time. They actually put love, care, and attention to it, which is something that has not been done since, I want to say, 2019, when Parasite won for Best Picture. But then again, a lot of weird moments happened after that, so that was before COVID-19 truly started to fuck everything up, and the year after was arguably one of the worst moments in Oscars history, but I'm not going to talk about that one here. I already did a video talking about that over a year ago. You guys can go check that out. So, presentation-wise, this was fantastic. The one downside is Jimmy Kimmel. I don't really like Jimmy Kimmel as a comedian. He's funny on small doses, but those are some very, very, very small doses that, for the most part, they are a little bit too much to swallow. And this show, he just kept repeating the same jokes that I knew he was going to be doing. He's going to make a Will Smith slap joke. He's going to make jokes about, I don't even remember anymore. Like, his jokes were so bad that I couldn't even think about them, or I couldn't remember them, because I just wanted him to just stop talking so that we can get back to the rest of the show. And thankfully, he didn't overstay his welcome, at the very least. That's the one good thing about Jimmy Kimmel hosting, is that he was there, but he was there for such little time that it ultimately didn't even matter. I also really liked what few skits they had, I thought they were pretty neat. I like the fact that they did this joke about how every year one of the nominees that ends up winning gets cut off, and they made that into a joke. They said that every time anybody's about to be cut off, the fucking cast from RRR will show up, and they will not to their way out of the podium. I thought that was pretty funny. I kind of wish they did that just as a joke for at least one of the nominees, but then again, I would have been annoyed if they interrupted any of the ones that won this year, because that's another thing I'm going to be talking about very soon, is that a lot of the winners this year gave some really incredible speeches, and I'm going to talk about it again in just a moment, but presentation-wise, excellent. Like, apart from Jimmy Kimmel doing his terrible jokes, I thought this was a pretty good show in terms of presentation. I even like the way that it starts. I like that it starts with this big montage of movies, and it does this little bit with Top Gun Maverick, since Tom Cruise is too busy filming Mission Impossible, whatever the hell the name is, because it's so many at this point that I don't even care. And they do this thing where Jimmy Kimmel was flying on one of the fighter jets, and he ends up having to eject, and he comes into the stage via a parachute. I thought that was a really neat effect. I like that he actually falls through a parachute. Like, I don't know how the hell they pulled that off, but it looked pretty cool when they did it. I thought that was nice. So, presentation-wise, I already mentioned how I feel about it. Let's talk about the actual nominees themselves. This year, there were a lot of nominees that I was very, very pleasantly surprised to see, and others that I knew outright were going to be the winners, but there were others that were very surprising in terms of how they ended up this year. The one that I want to talk about more than anything is for animated feature, for Best Animated Feature Film. I did not for a second think that we would ever get to see another non-Disney movie actually win the gold since Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse won back in 2019. I was actually very shocked to see Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio actually take the prize. It was going off against a lot of stiff competition between Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which I haven't seen, but literally everyone I know keeps telling me nothing but wonderful things about it, so I should probably check it out very soon. I think it's on Paramount+. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which I adored. The Sea Beast, which exists. I don't know why they nominated this when they could have nominated Suzume or literally any other anime film that was better than The Sea Beast. And Turning Red, which was a very good film and one that I was expecting a lot of good praise for, and one that I thought was actually going to be the contender for Best Animated Feature, which it was, but I didn't think it was actually going to lose to Pinocchio. I really did not think that this movie, which has been a labor of love by Guillermo del Toro, that he's been trying to do for almost a decade now, I didn't think this film would ever see the light of day, let alone be received as positively as it did. And I'm very glad that it did so, because I finally got to see it the day of the Oscars, believe it or not. I haven't seen it beforehand. I didn't get to see it when it came to theaters, which I now completely regret. I didn't see it when all the other films were being released. I had a chance to see Puss in Boots twice. I watched The Sea Beast out of curiosity, and I forgot about it immediately after I watched it. I still haven't seen Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Turning Red, I've seen multiple times, and I liked it every single time I did. It's one of my favorites of last year, and one that I couldn't recommend enough. I was, again, very disappointed, though, because as good as these nominees are, they still, once again, refuse to nominate or acknowledge any film that isn't from fucking America. Or at least, not the ones that they consider American, because we all know that none of these movies, at least 100% of the time, they're not American-based, but because they speak English, they're American, despite the fact that they're actually not. I am so sick and tired of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science ignoring or blatantly forgetting that films in Japan, China, and otherwise outside of the United States exist. I want to see more anime films get nominated. I still can't believe that Belle or Suzume were ignored this year, but The Sea Beast was nominated. Why is The Sea Beast nominated? Seriously, no one outside of my friend Robert knows what this movie is. They don't give a shit about The Sea Beast. No one cared about the Seabees. It is not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it is such a completely forgettable picture. The film isn't even that pretty to look at in terms of animation. It's basic as shit. It's really a disappointment that once again, we had four perfectly good anime films that could have been nominated in its place. Inu-Oh, One Piece Film Red. I'm not joking. I really do think it should have been nominated. Suzume, which was just a few months away from releasing in the United States, but it still could have been nominated because if it wasn't obvious, the film was already out in Japan way the hell beforehand, and the Jujutsu Kaisen movie, also known as Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Yeah, sure, you can call it basic or mainstream or whatever you want. I don't give a shit about your anime opinions. But these films were all legitimately fantastic, and they all deserve to have been nominated on this. Instead, they continue to nominate the fucking obvious picks. And one of these picks wasn't so much obvious so much as it was just completely and utterly nonsensical. It really bothers me that they continue to do this, but what you gonna do? Anyways, let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to talk about cinematography. This is one that I was very surprised to see the outcome for. Forgetting for a second that Bardo, False Chronicles of a Man Who Continues to Circle Jerk Himself, because this movie is so bad, it really needs to remind you just how important Alejandro Iñárritu is. I don't know why they nominated this, and I frankly do not care. It really is just a film that I do not want to even bother with. And I don't know if I'm ever going to listen to this because it's just a film that I don't care about. But every other film that we got here, which in this case include Elvis, Empire of Light, Tar, and All Quiet on the Western Front, these films I know. These films I completely understand why they were even nominated. And I personally do not think that All Quiet on the Western Front is the film that I think should have won this one, in all honesty. As good as the cinematography was, in my personal opinion, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of on the minority that thinks that Elvis should probably have taken that one. Oh, hey, Didi, how's it going? Thank you for joining me on the stream. You said it's on Netflix right now. Okay, alright, perfect. So, Elvis was the one that had my vote for cinematography. If not Elvis, then maybe All Quiet on the Western Front was my second pick. I didn't think that this one was going to be taking about 60% of the wins for... No, I'm sorry, not 60, about 40% at the very least of all the winners this year. I was very shocked that this movie won as much as it did. I was legitimately not expecting All Quiet on the Western Front to sweep as much as it did at first. It really was something that I was not expecting. But it ended up taking in for Best Cinematography, and it also ended up taking in for, let me see here, Best International Feature Film, of course, because Argentina in 1985, Close, EO, and The Quiet Girl, they were all nominated against it, but if it was going up against RRR, it would have lost immediately. I'm sorry, but RRR is definitely the better film. All Quiet on the Western Front is fantastic. I'm not saying that it isn't, but compared to RRR, you're basically asking me to choose between the obvious and the one that deserves it. And in this case, All Quiet on the Western Front was the obvious choice, not necessarily the choice I would have gone for. Now let's talk about Best Original Score, because this one was controversial for a lot of people, and I honestly see why, but I genuinely do not care. So, for Best Original Score, this was another win for All Quiet on the Western Front, and this is one that I genuinely understand why some people were against it winning. If you know the movie, you know how the music goes, but in all honesty, I think the music for this film really emphasized the almost steampunk and machinery-like aspect of World War I. It really made the whole movie feel like you were stuck in this hellhole that there was no escape from outside of death or an armistice in the movie's case. It really felt intense in every single moment that it was playing. Banshees of Inisherin was one that was also fantastic, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, the music by Sun Lux, and all the other musical guests that they had available for it were just great. The Fablemans, however, was the one that I was expecting to win, just because on the basis that it's a John Williams score, and it's a John Williams score for a Steven Spielberg movie. Like, come on. We knew it had to happen at some point. But it sadly wasn't the case here, and this may actually be the last time that John Williams scores anything in a long time, because the man is already almost at his 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't want to jinx anything, but it's something to think about. But at the very least, the most important thing to take away from All Quiet on the Western Front winning, the most important thing, at least Babylon lost. Because Babylon's score was atrociously bad. I hated that score. I hated it as much as the movie, but the score in particular, the fact that people were saying that this was one of the best musical scores of all time, not just from last year, of all time. And I took a second to listen to it after I finished watching the movie, which, good lord, this film was not one that was easy for me to sit through. And I'm one who can handle long 3-hour movies, but this was not a film that I could sit through. And listening to the score again, oh good lord, this movie, the music for this movie is so, it's like if you take the jazz genre, you make it drink a shit ton of Epicat, and just watch it vomit for hours. That's how it felt. It's just complete non-stop vomit-inducing music, and I could not sit through it. It was as bad as the music for La La Land, which, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same composer. At the very least, there's no Pasek and Paul music, so that's one good thing in its benefit. Although, to be perfectly honest, since we're talking about music and songs in particular, I kind of feel like Pasek and Paul would probably have been justified in being nominated this once, if nothing else, for Good Afternoon or for Unredeemable. But to be honest, I'm very glad with the selection of films that we had in terms of the Best Original Song nominations here. We have Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick, which is one of my favorite songs from last year. Lift Me Up, aka the It's Time to Cry song from Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And we have This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I didn't know up until making this video that David Byrne was one of the writers and composers. I love David Byrne. The other song that was nominated against it was Applause from Tell It Like a Woman. I hadn't seen this movie, but I did hear the song when they performed it in the show, and it was actually really good. But we all knew what the number one song was, the one that had to win. We all know it's no surprise. It was going to be Not To, no matter what. And I'm glad that it was the case, because good lord, I fucking love this song. It was my favorite song of 2023. It was my favorite song of 2022. To be fair, I can definitely say 2023 because I never got to see the movie in 2022 when it first came out, because I was only able to watch it on Z5 instead of on Netflix, which, by the way, side note, if you're going to watch RRR, do not watch it on Netflix. The version that's on Netflix is a goddamn amalgamation of multiple different dubs. None of them is the original Telugu dub, which is the original Telugu language that the movie was originally recorded on. So take with that and go check it out there, but for the love of God, just do not watch the one that's on Netflix. So I watched it for the first time, and it was one of my favorite movies ever, and I could not get enough of it. I listened to Not To so many times I ended up buying the entire soundtrack on my phone. Yes, bought. I don't stream music. I think that's ridiculous. And since then, I listen to it at least 4 or 5 times a day. And I still do. No joke. I really still do. So, Not To, best song of 2022. And I'm very happy that it won for best original song here. So, production design was another one that went to All Quiet on the Western Front. This is one that I feel like it kind of deserved it more than anything else, because the other one that I think should have been won against it was either Elvis or Avatar: The Way of the Water. I don't know why The Fabelmans is nominated for Best Production Design. The production design for that movie was very suburbia, very basic. Like there was nothing about the production design that screamed, "Give these people Oscars." Like it was good. It was good, but again, nothing too special, nothing worth celebrating. And then there's Babylon. Let's go ahead and move on to things that actually matter. Best sound editing. I genuinely thought that the Batman, or again, All Quiet on the Western Front, were going to take this one. If not Avatar: The Way of the Water. But the one that I knew for a fact had to win this had to be Top Gun Maverick. And I was very shocked and very happy to see that turned out to be the case. And when it comes to visual effects, so I need to kind of confess when it comes to this particular nomination. Why is Top Gun Maverick nominated for Best Visual Effects? Because here's the thing. If you haven't seen the movie yet, a lot of the visual effects for Top Gun Maverick are practical. They're very much all happening in real time. The only difference is they're using a couple of camera tricks and shit to make it look like some things are happening when they're actually not. Like that scene where there's two fighter jets flying, and then Tom Cruise as Maverick just swoops in right in between them, and that was a cool shot. But obviously, they had to completely work around it, because there was no way in hell that the United States Marines were going to allow them to actually do that kind of thing. So they're not even allowed to do that personally. So take with that what you will. So to me, that was a bit of a questionable nomination, but then again, you can stretch the truth when it comes to that particular nomination. You can come up with your own opinions on it. I'm personally very glad that Avatar: The Way of the Water ended up taking this one. This is probably the most deserving nomination out of any of them, with maybe the Batman coming in at a close second, and All Quiet on the Western Front as a close third, tied with Black Panther. But Top Gun Maverick, good movie. Don't know if it should have been nominated for Best Visual Effects, since a lot of those visuals were less visual and more just stunt people doing stunt people things. Anyway, let's move on to the writing categories. When it comes to Best Original Screenplay, I was actually very, very surprised that Everything Everywhere All at Once took this one. I was so 100% certain that The Banshees of Inisherin was going to win this. By nothing else over the fact that they're running for this movie. It's just one of the single greatest in cinematic history. Just some of the best dialogue I have ever seen from a script. I couldn't honestly believe it when I was watching it myself. Just a beautiful mishmash of words and ideas. I loved it so much. The Fabelmans, I'm not entirely surprised that it was nominated here. I think this film was honestly a little bit just good. Like, it's good, but I feel like the whole basis of this movie is the fact that you're basically watching the life of Steven Spielberg, and you're really not. You're seeing some families, some kids, some people that have really nothing to do with Steven Spielberg personally, but they were all inspired by him. So basically, it's a fan fiction about the life of Steven Spielberg. I don't know if there was a moment in his life where he ended up making out with some Jesus bitch, but hey, I guess he wanted to illustrate that part of his life that not a lot of people know about. Anyway, Tar. Oh boy, Tar. So, unpopular opinion here, I did not like Tar. I couldn't finish it. Tar is just a film that was 2 hours of nothing happening, and then the last 30 minutes when things finally start to pick up, by that point you just don't give a shit. Tar was a film that everybody was eating up, everybody was talking about. Like, they could not stop talking about it. Tar is a masterpiece. Tar is fantastic. We're going to be seeing Cate Blanchett taking in her third Oscar. I think this is her third for this movie. It was good. It's the greatest movie of this year. It's going to go down in history as one of the greatest. Look, it's opening the movie with the end credits, so you know that it's avant-garde and very good. The film is 2 hours of nothing happening with one of the most unlikable protagonists in movie history going around and crazy shit happening around her, but very, 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 very subtly. Like, on occasion, shit happens. The rest of it is just a bunch of politics when it comes to the music industry or the music composing history or industry. Or really, the whole thing. Look, I'm so bored talking about it. I'm on my phone now. The damn thing just didn't appeal to me. And I really tried to get into it. Believe me, I tried. But nothing in this movie sat with me. I don't know what it is. But the film just didn't work for me. And that really sucks. Because I know that there's a good movie in here somewhere. I just really don't care that much enough about it to actually want to see it. So I'm very glad that Everything Everywhere All at Once ended up winning. Triangle of Sadness can eat a bag of dicks. That was a terrible movie. It was bad. I'm sorry. Best Adapted Screenplay. This is the one that I'm very happy with the results for. Now, All Quiet on the Western Front and Glass Onion were all fantastic. Top Gun Maverick, sure. I like Top Gun Maverick. It's one of my favorites of last year, tied with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't know if it should have been nominated for this category specifically. They've explained to me that because it's technically a sequel, it's taken in ideas and characters from a previously existing movie, which makes it an adapted screenplay instead of an original one, which, fair point, okay, that makes sense, but that's just the way I look at it. It's weird and it's completely up to personal opinion. I just don't know if it should have been nominated. The one that ended up winning, however, Women Talking. Yes, abso-fucking-lutely. It was the one nomination that it got, besides Best Picture, that I truly believe that it deserved. Women Talking had one of the best screenplays I have ever seen, along with some of the best acted performances ever. A lot of this movie is just so unbelievable. Like, the writing is so nail-biting that it keeps you sitting down and it keeps you wanting to know more. It's such a nothing movie. Like, nothing happens in it. It's kind of like Tar, except the things that they are talking about actually have relation to things that matter. Like, they mean something to the story. Where Tar, it's like 70% of music industry politics, and 30% Tar might be a fucking serial killer. Or not. I don't know. All I know is that I had to Google and find out that the movie ends with her composing a concert for fucking Monster Hunter fans. I don't know either, but Women Talking, beautiful film, and one that I'm very glad that ended up winning for Best Adapted Screenplay. If it was going to be one movie, it was one nomination that was going to win, I'm glad that it was that one. Makeup and hairstyling, I kind of feel like The Whale should have won this one, and it did, but I also feel like maybe The Batman was a good contender to win this one as well, along with Black Panther and Elvis. All Quiet on the Western Front, it had some very good makeup and hairstyling as well. You genuinely believe the time period that all these people are in, but I cannot deny that it had to have been hell for them to basically transform Brendan Fraser into what he was in the movie. I think Brendan Fraser, goddamn, I keep saying his name wrong, but I am very happy with the results there, and I'm glad that at the very least, Black Panther and the Batman were both nominated against each other, but they both lost to Brendan Fraser, just like everyone else in the Best Actor category, which I'll be talking about in a few minutes. Best Film Editing, All Quiet on the Western Front was not nominated, which surprised me because I felt like this was definitely going to be one that it was going to be nominated for, just like it did for everything else. Instead, this one went to Everything Everywhere All at Once, and oh my god, it made me realize something that I didn't realize at the time. The editor for this movie is hot as shit. Everyone was right about this. This film went up against The Banshees of Inisherin, which I personally feel like the editing for that movie was good. Like, it was basic, but the one that I feel should have won outside of Everything Everywhere All at Once was definitely Elvis. If not Elvis, then Top Gun Maverick. Tar was much more basic than Banshees. I don't even know why that one was even nominated. But Top Gun Maverick, the editing for this movie was definitely what helped bring everything in this film together in a way that I don't really think was even humanly possible. With Everything Everywhere All at Once, however, with how huge this movie is, how insane every single moment on screen is, I'm very happy that this is the one that ended up taking the gold, because this was not an easy movie to make. And also, while I'm in the topic of film editing, and once again going back to what I was talking about visual effects, they nominated Top Gun Maverick for Best Visual Effects, and yet they didn't nominate Everything Everywhere All at Once? Are you fucked? I'm not going to talk about the documentaries because I personally haven't seen any of them, and I don't really have anything that I can say about it that nobody here is going to really have that much to think about either. Costume design, I'm going to be honest, Ruth Carter, deservingly so, she ended up winning again for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I honestly kind of wanted to see Everything Everywhere All at Once or Elvis take this one, though, just because I thought that their costumes were much more fitting. I have not seen Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, and I frankly do not care that much, to be honest. No offense, KateCast, if you're watching this, but I still think that all of these were very deservingly so to be nominated, and I'm very glad that Ruth Carter won this one again. And also, Babylon was nominated. Let's go ahead and move on to the acting categories. So, I'm going to start with the actresses first, and then I'm going to move on to the actors. Let me go ahead and start with the supporting roles here. So, outside of All Quiet on the Western Front winning for Best Original Score, the other big controversial win for this year, let me just get to the nominees first. We had Angela Bassett for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. That was the one I was rooting for, as a lot of other people were as well. Hong Chow for The Whale, which was a surprise but a very good one. I was very happy to see that she got the nomination that she deserved. Carrie Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin. Great performance. Absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen it, again, go check it out. It's on HBO Max. Stephanie Hsu for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I'm happy to say that Everything Everywhere All at Once ended up winning. Kinda. So, this is the one that really got on the nerves of a lot of people, and for understandable reasons, I guess, Jamie Lee Curtis ended up winning for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. And I've heard bad take upon bad take upon bad take of Jamie Lee Curtis's win being undeserving. I'm going to be very honest. I personally feel like she deserved it a little bit more than at least half of the nominees for Best Actress in a Supporting Role, except maybe Angela Bassett and Stephanie Hsu. But it was definitely a surprise. Not one that I'm against, however. Jamie Lee Curtis was amazing in this film. She really gave the best performance of her career outside of Halloween, the first film. It really was definitely one of her biggest and most powerful performances, and definitely one that required the most physical capabilities, because Jamie Lee Curtis is already, I believe she's in her 60s, give or take. She was definitely not at the right age to be doing the kind of stunts that they have her doing in this film. And for as much as people are nagging about the fact that she got she ended up winning and taking the award away from someone from someone like Angela Bassett or Stephanie Hsu or even Hong Chau. Like, they're kind of playing the whole, it's another example of when Anthony Hopkins won the award over every single minority actor nominated against him. Hold on. Let's take that out of perspective for just 1 second here. However you feel about them winning over these other nominees, the important thing is that they were all nominated fairly and they went up against each other fairly as well. Now, whether or not there was any sort of racial bias for why one won over the other, we do not know. There might be, probably, I don't know. I can't speak on behalf of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science, but what the fuck do I know? I'm just a Puerto Rican guy doing videos in a wasteland on a bomb shelter. But, in my personal opinion, Jamie Lee Curtis, definitely a film that may not have been the one that was deserving to win, but one that I'm very happy to see ended up winning regardless. Had it been up to me, though, it would have gone to Angela Bassett or Stephanie Hsu. Either one was a well-deserving win, but still, I'm happy that Jamie Lee Curtis won. And, hey, if it pisses people off, then I personally just do not care, because at the end of the day, she took her Oscar home with her, and she gave it they, them pronouns. So, I'm very happy with this woman. She's just the best at everything. Now, let's talk about Best Actress in the Leading Role, because, I'm gonna be honest, I was slightly hoping that we were going to be seeing the monumental upset of the fucking century, with Michelle Yeoh, Cate Blanchett, Michelle Williams, and there was a fourth one there, but I'm not going to talk about that because that movie is terrible and doesn't deserve to be referenced. I was so hoping that when all the stars aligned, that Andrea Riseborough would win for To Leslie, because she, along with the fucking movie company that did this, ended up basically cheating the system. And they got her nominated, despite the fact that, for lack of a better term, the film nobody has heard of. I was so ready for the chaos to erupt from Andrea Riseborough winning over Michelle Yeoh or Cate Blanchett. But unfortunately, I was slightly disappointed. Instead, Michelle Yeoh rightfully won for Best Actress in the Leading Role. Her first nomination, I believe, and definitely one that was more deserving out of any of the nominees on this list. Cate Blanchett is amazing. This was not the film for her to be nominated for. Michelle Williams was really good in this film as well. I kind of prefer her in My Week with Marilyn, which is the only time I'm ever going to bring up Marilyn Monroe in this video to not talk about the other movie. But if I wanted to see chaos erupt, Andrea Riseborough winning for Best Actress in the Leading Role would have made that night hilarious. But they played it too safe, unfortunately, so no chaos for me. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Best Actors. For supporting role, it's Ke Huy Quan. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm not even going to try to mince words about it. Ke Huy Quan was the most deserving win out of anybody in this nominees and on these nominations. I'm sorry, I can't even speak anymore today. I really could not put into words how happy I was that he was nominated, let alone won. Because this was a case where everyone in the world was hoping to see a miracle happen. But the fact that things happened the way that they did, and the fact that we got to see it happening on screen, it was just something so... I don't know how to explain it, but it was just such a beautiful thing to witness. Such an amazing, amazing speech, and one that had me tearing up after it happened. I don't really know how else to explain it except this was just a fantastic film and a fantastic performance that I'm very grateful that we got to see. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, that was just wonderful. And and also Brendan Gleeson from Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry from Causeway, Judd Hirsch for The Fablemans. I guess his performance... Like, people are complaining about Jamie Lee Curtis basically not being in the movie. No, she was in the movie for a long time. Judd Hirsch was in the movie for less than 4 fucking minutes. Who the hell are you people to complain? And Barry Keoghan for The Banshees of Inisherin. That's the second nominee for Banshees of Inisherin in an acting category. And honestly, if it was going to be anybody else and Ke Huy Quan was not nominated, it would have probably have gone to Barry Keoghan. Because I think his performance was definitely more well-deserving than any of the others, excluding Ke Huy Quan, because he was already going to win without any issue. What else we got here? Oh yeah, for Best Actor in a Leading Role, Brendan Fraser. Brendan Fraser! God damn it, my girlfriend's gonna kick my ass when she sees this. Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Austin Butler for Elvis, Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin, Paul Mescal for After Sun, or Mescal? His Irish, so I'm pretty sure I'm butchering his name, I'm sorry. And Bill Nighy for Living. So, I haven't seen Living. I have never heard of this movie until he got nominated, so I was kind of curious if this is another To Leslie situation. But no, this is actually a pretty well-known film, apparently. I'm just an idiot. He was nominated against Paul Mescal for After Sun, which is a nominee that a lot of people in my circle were talking about, but weren't expecting to see get nominated. Like, he was by far the biggest underdog out of all of the nominees here, because say what you will about Brendan Fraser, he was the one everybody wanted to win. He was not an underdog. He was just the expected winner, besides Austin Butler, who I genuinely am grateful to see that he got nominated like he deserved. And part of me was also kind of hoping that we were going to see another upset with maybe Colin Farrell finally winning an Oscar, but honestly, it's just a Cinderella story. And Brendan Fraser winning his Oscar is by far the happy ending to this Cinderella story. And if we're talking Ke Huy Quan, his was more of a Snow White one. I'm terrible when it comes to analogies, but I'm grateful for all of this. And let's go ahead and talk about Best Director. And I'm going to be very honest, out of all the nominees here, there was only one that I truly believe deserved to be on this list, and that was Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once. The best movie of 2022, my favorite movie of the year next to Top Gun Maverick. I couldn't believe that these two guys who just a couple of years ago made one of the most insane movies ever made with Swiss Army Man were now being nominated and winning multiple Oscars at once. This was the year where a bunch of YouTube people, or the closest thing to YouTube people, ended up coming into the Oscars and pretty much destroyed any chance for any big shots out there winning, because they came in with the silliest, stupidest, and most ridiculous movie that they have ever made in their lives, and they actually had something to say about it. This was a monumental masterpiece, and I cannot recommend it enough. And this, of course, leads to the big one, Best Picture. All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of the Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Elvis, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. Outside of Triangle of Sadness and Tar, that's 8 nominees, each rightfully deserving of being in this category. But Everything Everywhere All at Once was the greatest movie of 2022, and one of the greatest movies I have ever seen in my entire life. So much so that all of you want me to talk about it, apparently. So I'm going to close this stream with a idea. Since everyone on my last post really wanted me to talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once more than any of the other films that I had listed here, I'm going to make that my next big project after I do my Greatest Showman and Uncharted video essays that I'm working on. As soon as those 2 videos are done, my next video is going to be on Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I'm very excited to talk about it because this is a film worth talking about. So, thank you guys for watching, all 6 of you who decided to join on the stream today, which I understand it was very last minute. If you guys like what you see here and you would like to see more, then be sure to like, share the video with your friends, and subscribe for more content. I'd like to give a special shout out to our patrons of honor, Chelsea A Crandall, Abigail Verzella, Wade in the Wings, and Kate from KateCast Reviews. If you'd like to be like them and help keep supporting the channel, then check out our Patreon page for bonus content and exclusive rewards. And now, everyone, I hope you look forward to tomorrow as we're going to be bringing back our podcast. And as always, I'm Sebastian from Cinemaking Reviews signing out, and I'll see you on the wasteland.